Hello, we're looking at example 6 on page 784 of your pre-calculus part 2 textbook. This is how to graph two inequalities at the same time. Now, in example 1 that we've done previously on page 779, we learned how to graph one particular linear inequality. Now we're going to graph two at the same time, which is called a system of linear inequalities. As you can see, in this particular example, the first one is x minus y is less than 1. The other one is 2x plus 3y is greater than or equal to 12. The first thing we need to do in finding our solution here is to substitute x, y equals 0 to find the x-intercepts, and then we will substitute 0 in for x to get the y intercepts. And so that's exactly what they've done in this particular section here. They substituted 0 in for x in both of the equations, and then they ended up with x equals 1, which is the same as 1, 0. Then over here they ended up by, when they substituted 0 in for y, they ended up with x equals 6, which means that that one is going to have an x-intercept of 6. They do the same thing to find the y-intercepts. To find the y-intercepts, you're going to make your x value 0. That ends up being y equals -1, or what we call 0, -1. And for the other equation, by putting in the 0, by putting in the 0 here, you end up with 3y equals 12 or y equals 4, which means 0, 4 on the y-axis. So what they proceed to do here is they end up graphing the first line, which is the x minus y. My apologies. They end up graphing the first one here. And notice that there is no equal sign, so that means there's going to be a dashed line. And if you'll notice, they go through 1 on the x-axis. I can keep this from jumping around on me, my apologies. They go through 1 on the x-axis here, and they go through -1 on the y-axis, which is the two numbers that we got when we were doing our intercepts. And they drew, again, a dashed line. Now, because that said less than 1, they test a point here, and they found out that when you test the 0, 0 point, that it really does work, because 0 minus 0 is 0, and since 0 is less than 1, and that is true, then that means we're going to shade the side that 0, 0 is on, which happens to be this side over here. All right. Now, they come back and they graph the second equation. The second equation was the 2x plus 3y is greater than or equal to 12. The two intercepts for that was 4 on the y-axis, and the x-axis ended up being, I'm getting a glitch in my system, ended up being 6. Okay, so they're crossing at 6 on the x-axis. Let me get back to my. They're crossing at 6 on the x-axis here and 4 on the y-axis here. And again, this one's going to be a solid line. Notice I did it in they did it in a different color so that you can distinguish the difference. And it is going to be shaded. Again, if you test 0, 0, you find out that the 0 side does not work, so you're going to shade above. And they've done that with a series of lines instead of a color. Now, what you're actually looking for is the place where the two graphs overlap each other or share in common. And so what they've done is eliminate, it's really this area right in here. And so we're talking about this right here. That is the area that both inequalities are going to share in common. And therefore, that's where your answers lie. There's not one exact answer when it comes to inequalities. There's infinite amount of answers, but the answers are going to fall within that area of the graph. Okay. Now, on the next one here, well, I hope that helps. I think that that'll be enough. Graph them in two different colors, and you'll help yourself to see where the two overlap each other. And I think that you'll find out that will be the most helpful to you. Good luck.